Get inside first. Then, she urged. The rancher was stunned. And then, he had a wife. The desert wind howled across the plains, raising spirals of dust that glowed red under the dying sun. The old ranch at Red Hollow stood silent and forgotten, a ghost among endless miles of dry land. Jack Mercer rode back from town, his face roughened by years of sun and solitude. His horse was tired, coated in dust, mirroring the weariness in his master's eyes. There was nothing left for Jack but the road, the wind, and the memories that refused to fade. But that evening, something felt different, like the land itself was holding its breath. As he neared the porch, he froze. A woman was there, barefoot, her wrists raw and bound, her dress torn and stained with blood and dust. Her hair caught the last light of dusk, and though her face was streaked with dirt, her eyes burned with a fierce, desperate will to survive. "Please, get inside first. Then I'll explain," she whispered, glancing fearfully toward the horizon, as though expecting something, or someone, to emerge from the fading light. Jack didn't answer. He dropped the reins and scanned the land around him. Fresh tracks, a broken chair by the door, signs of a struggle. Whoever she was, she hadn't come here by chance. She stumbled as her knees gave out, and Jack caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold, trembling under his rough hands. "Who are you? What happened?" he asked, his voice low, steady. "No time," she gasped. "If they find me here, they'll kill you too." Her tone carried no lies, only fear. But behind that fear, Jack sensed something else: dignity, strength. She wasn't some drifter or outlaw. She was running from something much darker. Without another word, he lifted her in his arms and carried her inside. The cabin smelled of old wood and loneliness. He sat her by the fire, lit the logs, and handed her a blanket. She wrapped it around her shoulders, shivering. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "My name is Elena, Jack Mercer," he said simply. "Now tell me what the hell's going on." Elena took a breath, her eyes flickering with pain and defiance. "My brother and I had a small ranch near the river. Carter Lowell wanted our land. My brother refused to sell. They beat him half to death. I thought he was gone, until they came for me. They wanted to know where he was hiding. I escaped, but they're coming." Jack's jaw tightened. That name, Lowell, carried poison. Carter Lowell owned half the county, built his empire on intimidation and blood. Jack had worked for him once, long ago, before he learned what kind of monster he really was. "Lowell," Jack muttered. "I should have known." "You know him?" she asked cautiously. "Yeah, I know the kind of man he is. The kind who thinks the law bends for money. The kind who buries people that stand in his way." A heavy silence filled the cabin. The fire cracked softly. Jack looked out through the window, scanning the dark horizon. "You're lucky to be alive," he said finally. "It wasn't luck," Elena answered, her eyes flashing with quiet fury. "It was choice. I chose to live." Jack turned to her, meeting her gaze. There was something in her voice, a stubborn, burning spirit. The kind that refused to die. And for the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him. "You can stay here," he said at last, "until we figure things out. No one steps foot on my land without me knowing it." Elena nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I don't want to cause you trouble." Jack gave a faint, dry smile. "Trouble's been my only companion for years. You're no worse than the rest." A small smile broke across her face, fragile but real. Jack noticed it, and for a brief moment, the loneliness in the room eased. He leaned his rifle against the door, the familiar weight of danger now joined by something new, purpose. As the night deepened, the firelight flickered across the walls. Elena fell asleep wrapped in her blanket, her breathing slow and even. Jack sat in silence, watching her, wondering what twist of fate had brought her to his doorstep. He loosened his hat, leaned forward, and exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. Outside, a coyote howled in the distance. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the promise of a storm. Jack knew that peace was temporary, fragile, but in his gut, he felt something stronger than fear: destiny. Dash, dash, dash. The next dawn broke red and still. Jack stood on the porch with his rifle, eyes fixed on the horizon. The tracks from the night before hadn't vanished. The men of Carter Lowell were close. Inside, Elena moved quietly, her steps soft but steady. The bruises were still there, but the fear was fading. What replaced it was resolve. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked. "Yes," Jack said, "and they won't stop until they find you. Or until I stop them. I don't want you to die for me." He turned, meeting her gaze. "I'm not dying for you, Elena. I'm living for what you reminded me of, that there's still something worth fighting for." Their eyes met, and for an instant, the weight of the world vanished. Then came the sound of hooves, fast, heavy, echoing across the plain. Jack gritted his teeth and pulled the brim of his hat low. "Inside, stay low. Don't move until I tell you." But Elena didn't listen. From the window, she watched the riders approach. 4 men, dust rising behind them. The first shouted, "Mercer. We know she's here. Hand her over, and we'll spare your life." Jack raised his rifle, calm and cold. "Tell Lowell to come get her himself." The outlaw sneered. "Lowell doesn't waste time on dead men." The gunfire cracked through the air. Jack shot first, clean, precise. 1 man fell before his pistol even cleared its holster. Chaos erupted. The others scattered, shooting blindly. Jack moved with grim focus, each shot deliberate, each step measured. Within minutes, the dust settled, and silence returned. 3 bodies lay still in the dirt. Elena burst through the door, tears running down her face. "I told you not to." Jack lowered his gun. "You'd be dead if I hadn't." She ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck, trembling. "I couldn't stay inside and wait for you to die," she whispered. He hesitated, then held her close. And for the first time in years, Jack Mercer, hardened rancher, broken man, felt his heart give way. Days passed. The ranch grew quiet again. They buried the dead without a word. Jack repaired fences. Elena tended the garden. They spoke little, but their silence was peaceful now, not hollow. One evening, as the sun painted the land gold, Jack found her standing by the corral, watching the wind stir the fields. "Never thought I'd feel peace again," he said softly. She turned, smiling faintly. "What changed?" "You did," he answered. "You made me believe there's more to life than surviving." Her eyes glistened. "I never believed in miracles, Jack. But sometimes God doesn't send angels, He sends broken men with steady hands to save us." He kissed her then, slowly, deeply, as if sealing something sacred between them. Weeks turned into months. Rumors spread that Carter Lowell had vanished. Some said he'd been killed, others that he'd fled. Jack didn't care. He had his land, his peace, and her. One morning, with the sun rising over the hills, Elena found Jack waiting on the porch, his hat in hand and a quiet smile on his face. "Thinking again?" she teased. "Just remembering," he said. "The day you walked into my life." She took his hand. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head. "No. You gave this place a soul again. You gave me one." That evening, beneath the red sky, they swore their vows by the fire. No priest, no witnesses, just the wind and the land. And as the night deepened, the lonely ranch at Red Hollow no longer seemed so empty. Years later, travelers would speak of the rancher who once found a wounded woman at his door and never let her go. They said their laughter echoed across the plains, that love had bloomed where the earth was driest. Elena, the woman who once said, "Get inside first, then I'll explain," had changed his life forever. And Jack Mercer, the man who had lost everything, discovered that even in the wildest heart of the West, love could take root and live on, enduring as the horizon itself. The storm passed before noon, leaving the plains washed clean, the air heavy with the smell of wet earth and gunpowder. Pools of muddy water glimmered between the sagebrush, and smoke still curled faintly from the splintered windmill. Jack Mercer stood on the porch, hat low against the drizzle, watching the clouds break apart over the hills. Elena came out quietly, wrapping his coat tighter around her shoulders. Her eyes were red, not from fear now, but exhaustion. "They'll come again, won't they?" she asked softly. Jack nodded. "Yeah, Carter Lowell doesn't like to be embarrassed. He'll come himself this time, or send more men." Elena looked out at the open land, endless and quiet again. "Then we have to be ready." Jack studied her. She still had bruises down her arm and cuts on her hands, but her voice carried steel now. He'd seen hardened men crack under less. Yet she stood beside him, steady as the land beneath her feet. "I ain't used to partners," he said. "But I reckon I could use one now." A faint smile touched her lips. "Then we'd better start planning." They worked all day. Jack repaired the barn doors, set trip wires along the eastern ridge, and loaded every round of ammunition he had left. Elena helped him drag the bodies of the men they'd killed into the ravine and cover them with stones. She didn't flinch. That night, she sat by the fire, cleaning Jack's rifle like she'd done it her whole life. As the flames danced across the room, Jack found himself watching her more than he meant to. There was something about her presence that softened the weight in his chest, the one he'd carried since Clara's death. "You've done this before," he said quietly. She shrugged. "My father taught me to shoot when I was 12. He said a woman in the West had to know how to defend herself. I never thought I'd have to use it." Jack looked into the fire. "Out here, everything you never thought you'd do becomes the thing that keeps you alive." Elena glanced at him, her eyes catching the light. "Did you love her, the woman who lived here before?" He froze. The fire crackled, filling the silence. "Yeah," he said finally. "Her name was Clara. She believed this land could change a man. Maybe she was right, but when the fever took her, it changed me instead." Elena nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." He met her gaze. "So am I." They said nothing more after that. The fire burned low, and the night crept in close, carrying the distant call of coyotes and the slow sigh of the wind across the plains. The next morning brought no peace. At dawn, Jack spotted riders in the distance, 5 this time. Leading them was a tall figure on a black stallion. Even from far off, Jack could see the white hat and the glint of gold at his belt. Carter Lowell. The man rode like he owned the earth, his posture straight, his eyes hidden behind polished spectacles that didn't belong in a place as raw as the frontier. Jack loaded his Winchester with deliberate calm. "He's here." Elena's fingers tightened around the revolver. "Then let's finish this." They took their positions. Jack by the window, Elena crouched behind the woodpile near the door. The riders approached slowly, not in a rush. Lowell wasn't a man who hurried. He wanted to be seen, to remind his prey how hopeless resistance was. When they finally stopped 20 yards from the porch, Lowell dismounted with the grace of a man stepping into church. "Mercer." His voice carried easily over the wet ground. "I heard you've been entertaining one of my guests." Jack stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "She doesn't look much like a guest to me. More like a woman running for her life." Lowell smiled, and it was colder than the rain. "You used to work for me, Jack. You know how I handle disobedience." "Yeah," Jack said. "I saw it up close. That's why I left." Lowell's eyes narrowed behind his lenses. "I'll give you one chance. Step aside and hand her over. I'll forget you were ever part of this." Jack lifted the rifle to his shoulder. "You came all this way for a lie. You ain't leaving with it." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lowell's smile vanished. "Kill him." Gunfire exploded. Jack dove behind the trough, returning fire. Bullets tore splinters from the porch post, ripped through the shutters. Elena ducked low, firing once, twice, each shot steady. One of Lowell's men tumbled from his horse, screaming. Another grabbed the reins, trying to circle around the barn. Jack took him down before he cleared the corner. Lowell stayed back, calm as stone, reloading with surgical precision. His shots whistled past Jack's head, one grazing the brim of his hat. Stubborn as ever, Lowell shouted, "You could have been rich, Mercer. You could have had everything." Jack's jaw clenched. "I've got everything I need." Then came the scream. Elena had tried to move closer to the porch when a bullet caught her shoulder. She stumbled, dropping the revolver, clutching her arm as blood spread across her sleeve. Jack's heart lurched. He left cover and sprinted toward her. "Jack, no," she cried, but it was too late. Lowell saw his chance. He fired. The bullet tore through Jack's side, throwing him to the ground. Pain bloomed sharp and hot, but even as he fell, he raised the rifle, took aim, and squeezed the trigger. Lowell staggered. The bullet hit him square in the chest, knocking him backward into the mud. His white hat rolled away, stained red. Silence. Then one of the remaining men tried to flee. Elena, pale but furious, picked up her revolver with her good hand and fired. The man dropped, his horse bolting into the hills. The air went still. Only the rain spoke now, tapping softly on the tin roof. Elena ran to Jack, kneeling beside him. Blood soaked his shirt. "You're hit." He winced but managed a half smile. "Just a scratch. Don't lie to me." Her voice cracked. "You saved me." He reached up, brushing mud and tears from her face. "You saved yourself. I just helped." She pressed her hand to the wound, trembling. "Hold on, please." Jack's vision blurred. He could see the sky breaking open above them, streaks of gold and pink tearing through the clouds. "Looks like the storm's done," he murmured. "Don't you dare leave me now," she whispered fiercely. "You promised we'd stop running." He forced a breath, nodding. "Then, I'll keep that promise." Hours passed before the bleeding stopped. Elena bandaged him as best she could, using torn strips from her dress and whiskey to clean the wound. By nightfall, Jack was weak but alive. Lowell's body lay where it had fallen. His men, what was left of them, were gone. For the first time in years, Red Hollow was quiet. Elena built a fire outside and sat beside Jack on the porch. The flames danced against the night, reflecting in her tired eyes. "What will you do now?" she asked softly. Jack leaned back, the pain dulled to a deep throb. "Rebuild. Fix the fence. Maybe plant something for once." She smiled faintly. "And me?" He looked at her, the corners of his mouth curving. "That depends. You planning on staying?" She hesitated, then nodded. "If you'll have me." He reached out, taking her hand gently. "Then I reckon I already do." For a long time, neither spoke. The stars came out one by one, filling the vast western sky. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. "Funny," she murmured. "When I first saw you, I thought you were going to turn me away." Jack chuckled softly. "When I first saw you, I thought you were a ghost." "Maybe we both were," she said. "Until now." He smiled, eyes drifting toward the horizon, where the first glimmer of dawn began to rise. Weeks passed. The land dried, the air grew warm again. Jack healed slowly, though the scar would never fade. Together, they repaired what the battle had broken, rebuilt the barn, repainted the porch, and brought Red Hollow back to life. Sometimes Elena would ride to the river with the old rifle slung across her back, her hair loose in the wind. Jack would watch her from the field, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting everything in gold, Jack walked up behind her at the fence line. "Still think about leaving?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, this is home now." He smiled. "Home," he echoed, tasting the word like something new. That night, they sat by the fire again, the way they had that first night, but this time, there was no fear, no silence waiting to swallow them whole. Only warmth, and the sound of the land breathing easy around them. As the flames flickered low, Elena looked at him, her eyes soft. "You never did finish that sentence," she said quietly. Jack frowned. "What sentence?" "The one you said the day we met. When I told you to get inside first." "Then," she smiled faintly. "You never said what came after." Jack laughed softly, his voice rough with tenderness. "Then," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek, "I found something worth staying for." The fire cracked, sparks rising into the night like tiny stars returning home. And for the first time in a long, long while, the rancher of Red Hollow was no longer alone. Thank you so much for watching this story till the very end. Your support means more than words can ever say. If you felt the depth of this journey, don't forget to give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Together, we'll keep bringing powerful stories to life, and your presence here makes all the difference.